Welcome, one and all, to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are having a great start to your week. And it is rare to be able to say this, so we are going to cherish it as much as possible. One other source that is having a great start to the week is our Atlanta Braves. A walk-off 5-4 victory over the rival New York Mets. And the title of this podcast is not meant to be dramatic, hyperbolic, anything else other than the straightforward truth. Arguably the biggest win of the season. The way it was done, the fashion and it was done. Who came through big time to get the job done? It was an absolute must win, and the Braves got it taken care of. And we're here to break it all down for you. And there are few, if any, who are better at breaking it down than my podcast partner, Stephen Tolbert. Stephen, it's always good to do these with you, but especially when we get a needed win. Hope you've been well, buddy. Let's hear what you've got to say about the Atlanta Braves getting a big victory over the New York Mets.
Yeah, what's up, man? I think it's fair. I think the title is fair. I think that was the biggest win of the season. You're coming off this just disastrous loss on Sunday against the worst team in baseball. You had a chance to sweep. You had all the momentum in the world, a chance to sweep, and you just get bludgeoned at home 10-1 against the worst team in baseball, maybe the worst team of all time. And so the vibes are not good coming into tonight. You've got the division leader coming in. This is the first game all year against the Mets. They're up by 1 million in the division. The division race is not really a factor at the moment, but it's just about the vibes. And if you had lost this game, that's 2 in a row. All the momentum you had from that, mini hot streak is gone, and you're just back to the same old nonsense that we've had all year. And out of the ashes, quite literally, I mean, let's be honest, they were dead in the water for most of this game.
Yes.
It wasn't until the 8th inning, I think, that Ozuna hit that bases clearing double. And tied the game up. The one swing the Braves have been basically waiting for all year. I mean, that stadium has been waiting on that swing all year long, and it just never comes. And it came tonight, and Iglesias came in, shut the door. The Braves walked it off in the extras. Just a huge win when the Braves need. I mean, the Braves need every win, quite honestly, but. Yeah, you can't win a series until you win, this first one. I mean, if you had lost this first one, now you got to sweep the next two. Most likely you're probably going to lose the series. Now you've got a good chance to win your third series in a row. Big win, huge, huge win. And I'll tell you what, the last 30 minutes of that game really changed the tenor of this podcast because it was going to be pretty negative had that not happened. But they did. They came back and won it. And that was, I think, easily the biggest win of the season.
Absolutely. And let's kind of break down the different parts of it. We won't go out by out or play by play or anything like that, but let's talk about the other side of things. We talk about the fact that the offense finally came awake late in games. It felt like we were back in early May, but Spencer Schwellenbach was on the mound. And I want to give the Braves organization credit. I feel like it made sense. I mean, it definitely worked out to make sense. Starting Grant Holmes on Sunday to line up Sell, Schwellenbach, and Strider to go against the Mets this time around, probably the next time that they play as well. Grant Holmes obviously did his job on Sunday despite the end result of the game. But you want Schwellenbach in these games because he has shown an uncanny ability to be able to deliver big time against the best of the best in Major League Baseball. Tonight was only the second time he's made 10 career starts against opponents who at the time that he faced them, they had a 55% better winning percentage. Only the second time in such games he's given up 4 runs. Tonight, he did not have his best stuff. I don't think many would have, guessed that Tyrone Taylor would be the guy who would give him the most trouble. And of course, he had the bad luck with the bloop double that made the score 3-0. But he didn't have his best stuff, but he did do a good job of not letting it get away from him. He kept the game close enough, and that's exactly what you need. If he's not going to be elite like we're used to seeing him do it, at the very least, he's able to keep the game within the realm of possibilities of us winning. So I give him kudos to that. Not his best outing tonight, but good enough to get the win.
Yeah, it was a weird game. His stuff looked really good. I mean, throwing 97, 98, 99 at times. The splitter looked good. He threw one really bad one to Soto in the first that Soto hit, for a solo homer. And that's going to happen. The 2 runs in the second inning, Acuna did not get a good jump on that ball. I do think it's fair to point out that on wet grass with a guy coming back from 2 torn ACLs, we've said this before. I would manage my expectations on Acuna's defense, especially the jumps that he gets, especially on nights where he's playing on wet grass. Like, he's just not going to get good jumps, and people are just going to have to live with that. And he almost made the play anyways, but he didn't get a good jump on that ball. I don't think he saw it very well to begin with. But yeah, that was bad luck. And then he gave up another solo homer, but that was it. He really settled down after that and allowed the Braves to come in and start chipping away. The bullpen pitched well enough. I mean, they threw up zeros all night. And so, was it Schwelle's best game? No, but Schwelle has picked up the offense plenty of times where it's time for the offense to return the favor. And they finally did. These are normally the games the Braves lose because the offense can't cover that up. And this is one of the few times this year they did. They actually covered up a 4-run deficit, or 4-run deficit or 3-run deficit that the Braves were in at different points in the game. So really good job by the offense. Not Schwelle's best game, but he did, he wasn't awful by any stretch. Just kind of an average game for him. Great job by the bullpen and great job by the offense to eventually cover it back up.
Stephen, I don't want to get too dramatic because I know that it's nowhere near the same, level of odds, that we saw back at the end of the 2022 season when the Braves at the very end of the season were coming back from being 10 down about this time in 2022. But it felt like that it was that type of end of the game performance because I've talked about it before. You've talked about it before. What the Braves need a lot to get out of this hole that they're in is for their best to be at their best. And that was it tonight. Matt Olson had the first hit that got the RBI. He had the walk in the 10th inning that brought Austin Riley up. Ronald Acuna Jr. on a night where, due to some managerial decisions and also just in general, what the Mets were probably not wanting to do. The Mets are not going to let him be the guy that beats them. He found another way to get the job done. He made up for, getting a bad jump on that 2-run double by making an outstanding play against the wall and doubling up Soto, to keep them off the board. I believe it was in the top of the 8th or top of the 9th. And then Austin Riley, who was 0 for 8 with runners or with the bases loaded. He has had 2 whole hits since the start of 2024 with the bases loaded. He got a great opportunity to drive a ball, did exactly that. I think if you look at StatCast, you'll see the ball that he hit probably would have been a home run in many other situations. But the key is he got the job done. And that's what stands out. Raisel Iglesias as well. So many of our better players did their job tonight. And you can see what happens when they do that. We still are fully capable to get a big win against a quality opponent in the Mets. Our best were at their best tonight when it needed to be the most. And that's exactly what occurred.
Yeah. And then, of course, the double by Ozuna, probably the biggest swing of the game. So you got literally the biggest plays of the night happened. And I'm glad you brought up that second Acuna defensive play because he really did make up for that first one by, that was the top of the 9th. The Braves had literally just tied the game. Soto led off the inning with a walk. If that ball goes over Ronald's head or hits off the wall, the Mets are certainly scoring in that inning and maybe winning the game because the Braves had the bottom of the lineup up in the bottom of the 9th. So that play probably saved the game. So yeah, it was kind of a good night for everybody and the big guys at least. And listen, they could lay an egg tomorrow. They could come out and lose. We could lose 2-1 tomorrow and we're right back to where we started. But for one night, this is what I expect. I expect when the starting pitchers have been awesome. They've been awesome for like 2 months now, but every once in a while they're going to have just meh games. But this offense should have enough talent to cover that up. And all year long, and going back to last year, they just don't do it ever. And this is what I expect. I expect them when the pitcher doesn't have his, the best night he's ever had, that you help out, you cover it up. And, we still watch 6-7 innings of just absolute nonsense baseball from the offense. We're not all the way back yet. I think between all the runs they scored in Colorado and the runs they scored in the 8th inning tonight, they went like 22 innings and scored like 3 runs or something like that, something crazy. So like we still have these moments with the offense where it's just maddening to watch. But every once in a while you see glimpses, and I'll say it until there's not time to say it anymore, but maybe this is the win. Maybe this is the one that gets them going. We've seen it in past seasons with big wins that you can literally point to back on the counter and saying, at this point, this is when the Braves took off for 3 months. Could this be the win? We're not going to know for 3 months, but it could be. That's how big this win was.
and we'll talk about this a little bit later on the podcast, but I will hint at it a bit. Again, I know that loss on Sunday was pretty disappointing, but the Braves also have now won 5 out of 7 after losing 14 out of 17, and they won 5 out of 7 with Chris Sale being at a Cy Young level over the past 6 weeks, and Spencer Strider in back-to-back starts here against the Mets over the next 2 days, coming off his best start of the season against Colorado. So you see, not only are we getting a little bit of momentum going, but we've also got our best options to keep that momentum going against the Mets as we go over the next few days. But do want to talk about what can keep this lineup going. And it's not just about the best guys in the lineup doing their jobs. Brian Snitker has to do his job as well. And there's definitely one decision that I feel we just need to stop making. We just need to go with what's simple. We'll discuss that in just a moment after a word from our partners.
It is summertime. We are in the thick of golf season. It's always golf season down in Florida, but we're in the thick of golf season across the country. And if someone's looking to get a new club, that logo should say it all. PXG. What do they do?
Go get fitted. Mm-hmm. Go get fitted by one of their master fitters, professional fitters. I've done it. It's helped shave many strokes off my handicap. It is worth it. It's educational. You learn about not only clubs, you learn about shafts, you learn about grips, you learn about angles. They have all the numbers, all the setups that you need to help improve your handicap.
You feel like a VIP when you're there.
100%. They even help my putting, which needed help.
Mm-hmm. They help your putting there. That's how cool it is. So schedule your fitting today, and for a limited time, you could save up to 20% on your entire order. Head over to pxg.com/foul. That's pxg.com/foul to save up to 20% on your entire order. pxg.com/foul. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
So, Stephen, one thing I want to also, kind of, get a little bit more of your thoughts on is that, we'll get into, a decision that I think that Brian Snitker, many in Braves country are kind of like scratching their heads. We'll discuss that in just a moment. But I do want to get back to Ronald Acuna Jr. and, that defensive play, that he made. The reason why I think that is so significant is because you saw earlier in the game, I know that many had some questions about his outfield play. It's not really been a strength of his game even before his injury. Now you kind of, question, just how good he'll be in the outfield. But this was a game where it was clear that the Mets wanted to make sure. They did not want to give him a chance to beat them. 3 walks, including an intentional walk in that 10th inning, and yet he still found a way to make a superstar-level impact in the field. That, to me, is a clear indication that Ronald is fully back. He's back to where he can make an impact, even when the most likely way of him or the most expected way of him making an impact is kind of taken away from him. That was a big play in a big moment, and he delivered. And that, to me, is what kind of tells you that Ronald's mindset is there all the time. Not that it has been lacking at other times, but it's just, when Ronald is at his best, when he finds way to be able to contribute at the plate, in the field, on the base pass, that is when Ronald is at his best. And I think that this is a clear indication he's back to being 100% Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah, listen, until some of these guys behind him, and we're going to talk about the lineup construction here in a minute, but until some of these dudes behind him start hitting better, this is what teams are going to do. They're going to walk him. I mean, he walked 3 times tonight, and I think he went 1 for 2 with a single and 3 walks. So in 5 plate appearances, he got pitched to twice, and he had a single in one of them. So, but this is what's going to happen. He's going to get walked a ton. And I mean, that's what I would do if I was the Mets. That's what I would do if I was any team. I mean, he's too good to let him beat you. So, I love seeing him find other ways to contribute, like you're talking about. But yeah, they're going to have to rearrange the lineup a little bit, I think, to keep teams from doing what they did tonight, which is basically pitch around him for 5 at bats.
Yeah, and that's where we get to in terms of, kind of the one, not necessarily negative takeaway, but the one clear area where you can improve. We could talk all day long about how it's great for Ronald Acuna Jr. to contribute in multiple ways, but at the end of the day, what this team needs the most is for him to have every opportunity to deliver at the plate. And we certainly don't need to have a managerial decision take away from that. What I'm getting to is that last Friday, because of something that Alex Verdugo had done back in 2019, Brian Snitker batted Alex Verdugo second. Despite the fact that he had less than a 600 OPS since the start of May, he batted him second. Now, we'll give Brian Snitker credit. That night against the worst potential team in baseball history, it was the right decision. Alex Verdugo had a good night. Yay, he had a good night against the Colorado Rockies. That doesn't mean that it becomes a go-to decision to put the Alex Verdugo and Eli White platoon as in the second spot of your order. That is not the level of player this team, which is badly needing consistent offense, to be at the 2 spot in their order. One of the biggest reasons why is because you saw tonight, for instance, there were multiple times where that spot came up in a big moment and they didn't deliver. That's the second worst thing about putting them in that spot. But the first worst thing is you lower significantly the overall impact of your best hitter who's in the first spot because teams are going to pitch around him. Stop putting those guys in the second spot in the order. Go with your best options. I know you have some thoughts on that, but I'm just pleading with the Braves. I'm glad it worked out against the Colorado Rockies. That doesn't mean it's going to work out against the New York Mets. Go with your best guys. At the end of the day, even if you want to overthink things, just go with your best guys. More often than not, you're probably going to find success.
Yeah. Well, and especially with the quality or the lack of quality of the bottom of the lineup. Because right now you have Ronald Acuna Jr. batting 1, and bracketed on each side of him is Michael Harris and Nick Allen batting 8 and 9, and then Eli White and Alex Verdugo batting 2. So you have basically your 3 worst hitters surrounding Ronald Acuna Jr. every night in the lineup. And it's just you're making the job of the other managers so much easier because you're just allowing them to take Ronald completely out of the game because there's nothing around him in the lineup that is of any threat on any given night. And so, Scott and I talked about this a few weeks ago. You and I have talked about it. I've talked about it for like 2 years now. My philosophy on the lineup has always been the same: is put your 4 best hitters, or however many hitters, your best. If you've got 5 great hitters or 4 great hitters, however many you have, put them all at the top. Start with Ronald, put Matt Olson second, put Riley third, and put Ozuna 4. And it doesn't matter if there's a lefty on the mound or righty on the mound. Those 4 guys are going to hit in the top 4. And then, you can do Ozzy or Baldwin or Murphy or, however it's Verdugo or Eli White, whatever. But there's not a chance in hell that I'm letting teams just pitch around Ronald this much because I've decided to put my 3 worst hitters around Ronald in the lineup. And that's what the Braves are doing. And I know Snit is kind of an old school guy. He kind of wants that like speed bat control guy batting second. I really kind of hate that philosophy. I would just put your best guy. I would just put Ronald 1, Olson 2. I think the 2 best hitters on this team and have been for 3 years now are Ronald Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson. I think those are the 2 best hitters. I would put one of them 1 and one of them 2. And listen, we're going to talk about Profar here in a second, and maybe that changes the equation. But until he comes back and shows that he can be a legitimate major league hitter without steroids, I'm batting Ronnie 1, Olson 2, Ozuna or Riley 3, and the other one 4. However you want to put those last 2 is fine with me. But yeah, I don't understand having so many bad hitters around Ronald every night and just allowing the other team to consistently pitch around him, which effectively takes him out, especially because he's not running. He's very clearly not going to run. So, you're just allowing teams to take his bat out of the game. And I don't understand why you would set it up where it just makes it so easy for other teams to do that.
Now, and I do want to be a bit fair to Brian Snicker because David O'Brien of The Athletic brought up a great point. It's a very unfortunate point, but it's a great point. Right now, when you look at the Braves lineup, when you've got Ozzy Albies, Michael Harris II, and Nick Allen, of all the qualified, 2 of those 3 are qualified hitters, and they have, of all the qualified hitters in baseball, 2 of the 15 lowest OPSs in baseball. Nick Allen, I believe he said, was 6 at-bats away right now from having, the 3rd lowest OPS or something along those lines. So in other words, of qualified hitters in Major League Baseball so far this season, you've got 3 of the worst 15 in your lineup. So I kind of understand also Snicker not wanting to just bat all those guys back to back and just having that many automatic outs in a row, plus Eli White as well as Alex Verdugo. I get that. I certainly understand that, those guys have to improve. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to give yourself the best odds to be successful, to be consistent. And I think that that's batting your best bats back to back to back. And that leads us to our, big point is that, the other big news of the night was that Jurickson Profar did begin, not necessarily a rehab assignment, but basically due to the rules of a player that is suspended with how many games now he is to returning, which is basically a few weeks away. I believe it's July 2nd he can return. He started, it's not really a rehab assignment, but he started playing in the minor leagues. He basically is allowed to play in the minor leagues to kind of get back into baseball shape. Don't necessarily know the stats from the game. I know that he had, a pretty hard hit ball in play in his first at bat. But this is significant because whatever you may think of Jurickson Profar, whether you don't believe he's going to come close to what he did last year or not, a couple of things still stand out. He makes contact consistently, and he also can get on base consistently. You take that skill set and you put it right into your number 2 spot, and that solves all this issues with the coaching staff overthinking it. That is something I'm looking forward to, stacking Jurickson Profar in that second spot, then Olson, some combination of Riley and Ozuna, and your catcher spot. You've got your top 6 in place. That could really help out the consistency of this offense.
Yeah, so that was the big news today, was that Profar was starting his – it is funny they call it a rehab assignment. He's not coming back from an injury. He's not – I guess technically he's rehabbing his reputation. I guess that's what he's rehabbing at the moment. But he is starting his return to play, and the rules of the CBA allow a player who's been suspended for PEDs to start back in the minors about 2 weeks before he's due back in the majors, so that he can actually, the day his suspension is done, he can play in the majors. So I looked up the stats. I think tonight he went 2 for 3 with a walk and a sac fly. So he had 4 quality, productive at bats. And yes, when Profar comes back, if he is the Profar that they think he is, and that is a massive if, by the way, that's not a guarantee at all, given what's happened. But if he's the quality of hitter that they think he is, then he could be in that mix with being, Acuna 1, maybe Profar 2, and then you go Olson, Riley, Ozuna, or however you want to mix those up. It's very clear that Snit does not like putting Olson, Riley, or Ozuna 2. I don't know why. I've never really understood that, but that's clearly how Snit is. So, 100% if he's back and he's actually productive, that could solve this issue where you don't really have a 2-hitter, or at least in Snit's eyes, they don't really have a 2-hitter. So, yeah, it's significant. And the Braves need him. Just point blank, the Braves need him. Like you said, the Braves have 4 positions: left field, center field, second base, and shortstop, who are among the worst hitters in baseball. Like all 4, the Braves have 4 positions on the diamond that are among the worst hitters in baseball. That's brutal. It's no wonder the offense goes through these massive peaks and valleys. When you've got 4 of the worst hitters in baseball making up half your lineup, that's what you're going to get. So, yeah, Profar, it's a massive deal with Profar. And we're going to watch it like a hawk to see how he does in AAA. We're going to watch it like a hawk to see how he does when he gets back. I'm going to be very interested in the StatCast data, like how hard he's hitting the ball. That was the big thing about they gave him that contract because his batted ball data was significantly better. Well, now we know maybe that wasn't all legitimate. So what does that batted ball data look like now that we know he has to be clean? So that stuff I'm going to be watching like a hawk. It's going to be fascinating to look at, but it's a big deal, and the Braves need him. The Braves need more quality hitters in their lineup because right now they got too many black holes that are just automatic outs.
Absolutely. And you have to hope that as he comes back, others drop down further in the lineup. Maybe that gets the offense going. Maybe some others, feel a little bit of pressure taken off of them, and that could lead to better results from guys like Michael Harris and Ozzy Albies, among others. But some other fun things to discuss, including the first update when it comes to the All-Star voting, which, of course, we all know is in Atlanta. A bit of details on that, plus a look ahead to the rest of this huge series against the Mets after another word from our partners.
By now, you know that HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit and that you can choose from 60 recipes every week. But what you might not know is that AJ wants me to describe some of the recent meals that are on the menu. So here we go. Sun-dried tomato grilled cheese sandos. That was easy. Panko-crusted chimichurri barramundi.
Yes.
Let's go.
Nailed it.
Let's
that
go.
Sounds delicious, too, by the way.
It does.
And listen, as someone that uses HelloFresh a lot, they come in these little bags. with all the ingredients in a bag. You take it out of the bag. It gives you instructions. The recipe's in there. You got to do a little cooking so you feel like you did some stuff. Highest quality ingredients, just delicious for meals.
That's right. Make your summer enjoyable and delicious by signing up for HelloFresh at HelloFresh.com/FT10FM and then get 10 free meals with a free item for life. That's HelloFresh.com/FT10FM for 10 free meals and a free item in every box, 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals are applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only, varies by plan.
Yeah, Steven, so Monday the Braves had an off day, but it was a newsworthy day because the first initial results from the All-Star balloting for the American and the National League when it comes to position players, they were released. And those results have a bit more significance with them in recent years because, of course, they lead to the top 3 eventually being voted on again, I believe, by fans. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was a bit surprised by the results. Ronald Acuna Jr. was the only Braves position player who was voted into a relevant position. He was 6th overall in outfield voting. I imagine that he'll work his way up, in a, especially if he keeps, setting the world on fire. He'll eventually work his way into that, and I think that he'll be, maybe a starter or at least on the team when it comes to the All-Star teams. But you typically see the Braves, you typically see Braves country out there, putting, Braves, this is the same source that has put, Orlando Arcia as the starter 2 years ago. So I'm not saying I'm disappointed in Braves country because I completely get it with how this season has gone along. I'm just saying I'm a bit surprised, especially for Matt Olson, who I think right now should be, in the, at least in the 3rd spot when it comes to the first baseman. Any surprises from you? We may see Matt Olson eventually work his way up. Again, I get the reason why perhaps we didn't see as many Braves as we usually do, but still a bit of surprise. Certainly hope Ronald gets the support that he needs to get up in that top 3 eventually.
Yeah, Ronald's probably going to make it, honestly. I mean, just look at it. I mean, his numbers are absurd. I mean, he was on base 4 more times tonight. So, I mean, his on-base percentage is approaching 500 rapidly. So I think Ronald's going to make it, and I think it's deserved. I was surprised Matt Olson was like 6th among National League first basemen. And I get Freeman and Alonso are having monster years. So those guys were going to be ahead of Olson, but Olson is very clearly the next best first baseman in the National League. Luis Ariz is ahead of Matt Olson. Luis Ariz is having a terrible year with San Diego. And I think Braves fans are just pissed as hell at the way the season has gone. And they, I just don't think they cared to vote much other than Ronald, which I'm not blaming them. I haven't spent a lot of time voting for All-Stars. I've made more jokes on Twitter about the Braves voting for All-Stars than I have actually voted for any All-Stars. So, so it's not surprising. Ozuna was always in a tough spot because Ohtani and Schwarber are both DHs in the National League, and both of those guys are having absolute monster years. And Ozuna has really struggled the last month with the hip stuff. His numbers have really fallen off. That's another reason that hit tonight was so big. It's good to see Ozuna get a big hit specifically. But yeah, nothing terribly surprised. Olson was probably the biggest surprise being that low among first basemen, but I think Acuna is going to make it. And I think Sale's going to make it. And then I think Schwellenbach's got an outside chance of making. So I think at the most the Braves are going to get is 3. I think more likely is probably 2.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I want to discuss is this. So, I know that Scott and Brad talked about it on Sunday. I kind of put it out there. The best way that I could put it out there is 10-5. With coming into today, the Braves needed to get 10 or more wins through the end of June. And the only way they could do that is scoring 5 runs a game, averaging 5 runs a game. Well, they got the win tonight, getting 5 runs a game. That's the pace that they need to be at. But again, I know this is me going back to being positive, and I know that it could all be shot to hell tomorrow if we go out and lay a dud. But we won 5 out of our last 7. We have made up 2.5 games in the wild card over the past week. And again, we have Sale and Strider on the mound over the next few games. I'm not wanting to put too much faith into this because, again, we've tried that before, and that bridge has been burned so many times this year. But we are at least seeing that if we can win this series, if we can win one of the next 2 games and set ourselves up against the Marlins for the weekend, you could start to see that 14 out of 17 losing stretch was horrible. But bouncing back and winning at a 75 to 80% clip over the next 2 weeks after that could really put us in a decent position. Again, I'm not sitting here. I think it's more likely than not we're not going to make the playoffs this year. But we get another win in this series, and then we win the series against the Marlins, you're starting to chip away. You can see how quickly things can turn in your favor if you just play to your capability.
Yeah, I mean, if they play to their talent level, of course, they can beat anybody. I mean, literally anybody. But we've just seen so many times where it looks like the Braves got everything going the right direction, and then out of nowhere, they just lay an egg. And usually that starts some sort of bad stretch. And so that's like what I'm always on guard against. Like, I love that you're a positive person. I love that you are always trying to spin it positive. And I'm trying to get there myself, because Strider and Sale going the next 2 days, like, the Braves are in a really good spot to win this series. And then you got a bad Marlins team, and that could potentially be 4 series wins in a row, which is no joke. But I'm always on guard against the Braves laying an egg the next 2 days and losing this series. And I know that's an extremely pessimistic way of looking at it, but after the last 2 years, especially this year, like, it's just tough to get too excited. But this was a massive win. This was a massive win, because now you just have to win one of the next 2 to win the series. You've got a chance to win both of them with Sale and Strider on the mound. Then you go to Miami, you could potentially do some damage. It's right there in front of you to make a little run here. And I would probably suggest to people not to even look at the division until the Braves have like a good month or so, and then maybe check in on the division every once in a while to see if they've made up any ground. I would focus mainly on the wild card. The Braves are 7 games back, which is a much more manageable number. I think they're still like 12 or 11 games back of the Mets in the East. So I would put that out of your brain. I wouldn't even concentrate on the division. We're talking about the wild card pretty much exclusively until the Braves get, back into the same stratosphere as the Mets and the Phillies. So, but they're not dead. And Brian Scott made that point on Sunday. They're not dead, but they have such a small margin of error that one 3-game losing streak and they might be dead. 1 4-game losing streak and they might be dead. Like, that's how much on a knife's edge it is right now. Like, they have no margin for error. They have to play really good baseball basically from now to the end of the year. We'll see. We'll see if they can do it. I hope you're right. I would love for your positivity to win the day, and you're 100% right. Nothing would make me happier that you would be right and I would be wrong here.
So the best way, in my opinion, to keep the perspective in place to where you keep kind of the odds in your favor is not to look too far ahead. That old Bobby Cox adage, 1 game at a time. Win today, and that just makes you more confident to win tomorrow. And then that's when you can start to look at the bigger picture with a bit more positivity. But hey, the good thing is that we have a bit of momentum going into tomorrow with our best pitcher on the mound. You have to feel confident that you've got the starting pitching matchup. The big thing for this Braves team, hit the freaking ball in the air earlier in the game. Yeah. That's going to be a huge key. Get some runs early for your starting staff to alleviate some of the pressure off of what your offense has to do late in games and off of your bullpen.
And
Steven,
if the Mets want to keep making outs on the bases,
yeah,
that's fine too.
Yeah.
I think Alonso and Soto both made 2 outs on the bases tonight. So
yeah, if they don't want to play their full potential, let's do it. So
yeah, we accept all gifts.
Yes, absolutely. For Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at @B_outliers on Twitter/X. My name's Shawn Coleman. Find me at StatsSAC on Twitter/X. Hammer Territory across all forms of social media. Part of the Foul Territory family of podcasts, as well as you can find all great content from Foul Territory, including, some clips from yours truly on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to enjoy your podcast. That's where we'll be for free. Just hit that subscribe button and you can get our content anytime, anywhere that you like. Until next time, go Braves. A big win for the Atlanta Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory Podcast.